Hi, welcome to Week in Review, where we look at some of the news and the headlines. I'm Phil O'Connor, the Live Enterprise Director, joined this week by Ryan Sharp, our sports editor, and my old friend Don Mecoy, the business editor, and from the Capitol, where he's keeping an eye on the teachers and their walkout, Ben Felder. Ben, let's start with you. What's the latest from the Capitol today?
Today is day 5 of the teacher walkout that began on Monday. So a similar scene that we've seen the last few days. Tens of thousands of teachers have come out here to advocate for more public education funding. At least at the moment, the focus is on the Senate side of things. The Senate is considering 3 revenue-raising bills this morning, including the so-called Amazon tax, the third-party internet sales tax that was approved out of the House earlier this week. They're actually debating that as we speak, and there are thousands of teachers right outside the Senate door that continue to chant, as they've been doing all week, to have the Senate move forward. So the big question is going to be, one, what does the Senate do with these bills? Some lawmakers seem to think it's likely that they will pass, although there's a lot of debate right now on the internet sales tax one. But if they do all pass, and they pass cleanly, meaning they can go on and don't have to go back over to the House, the next question is going to be, what's the walkout look like moving forward? Is this going to be enough funding for teachers to return to class on Monday?
Well, is the House in session today?
Well, the House is in session of sorts. They met this morning, and they're in recess. So if there are any amendments or anything that the Senate kicks over, they're prepared to meet. I'm actually sitting in the press gallery of the House. The floor is empty. There are teachers in the viewing gallery sitting, but it appears that the House is prepared to maybe take some action, although I'm not really sure what the exact status is of the House right now. But the fact that there are lawmakers in the building on a Friday is a very rare sight. So the teacher walkout has spurred a rare Friday meeting of lawmakers.
And then one thing, one of the revenue issues that they're voting on again is, if I understand correctly, is the hotel-motel tax is back in the mix. Am I right on that?
Yeah, so that was a part of the last week's, massive over $400 million in new taxes package that went to the teacher pay raise and some other education funding areas, textbooks, and about $18 million into the general education fund. The hotel-motel tax was originally part of that, and then it was left out, and so they are taking that up. But here's the big question with all of these bills: is it going to go to education? I mean, the internet, the third-party internet sales tax, the Amazon tax, an amendment was added to dedicate it to public education. So that one appears like, if it passes, it will go. But even if the hotel-motel tax passes, the ball and dice gaming, which is an issue the Senate's taking up, that would have to be written into the education budget. The education budget's already been approved. Yesterday, the Senate floor leader said that he didn't think that the education budget was going to change, that it is what it is. But here they are taking up these measures. So we have to see, are they going to pass? And if they do, what does that mean for education funding? Because right now, they're just set up to go into the general budget.
Gotcha. So we're still sort of unclear about what we're looking at on Monday, possibly, right? We don't know if they'll still be on a walkout or if they'll be back in the classrooms yet.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw moments ago that Edmond announced that they would be closed on Monday, and I haven't seen if there's any other schools that have confirmed that. That's a hard question. I don't get the sense that these bills that they passed today will be enough. I don't think that they will be able to pass and become finalized and get signed by the governor, and that the information will be able to be digested by the teachers to feel like they know exactly where the money's going. But I also don't get the sense that even if they did, that it would be enough funding. Teachers have kind of focused on some more bigger lifts, like the capital gains tax exemption and repealing that, which is estimated to bring in over $100 million. I think they feel like, hey, we've gotten to this moment, this kind of once in a generation moment. We need to, go big before we go home. But yeah, Edmond's already announced they'll be out on Monday. I talked to some Oklahoma City teachers union officials who were really kind of unsure what to expect. In fact, they just said, we're not really sure that today's action is going to change anything. And right now, it's really the crowd, the mob, for lack of a better term. It's been a peaceful, if not intense, crowd, but it's really kind of up to them. And even the Oklahoma Education Association, which is the one that kind of kicked off this walkout, has really kind of been taking the lead as far as following teachers as they go along. So I think there's a chance that maybe something happens today, but that would maybe end the walkout. But after having a lot of conversation this morning and kind of seeing the mood of teachers, I would put odds on that we're back here on Monday.
Well, we'll continue to follow this story, and if you haven't been, Ben Felder's been all over it. Dale Denwald, our Capitol reporter, as well. Justin Wingirter has been covering a lot of this story as well. We've had reporters, photographers, videographers at the Capitol all week. Constant updates. You can follow our live coverage at newsok.com. Of course, we have stories in the paper every day. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Look for us there as well. This is a historic moment, really, for the state. To see these kinds of crowds, to see this kind of movement going on at the Capitol. It's a really historic event, and we're doing everything we can to bring you the latest news on it. So stay tuned to News OK for that. Don, let's talk about President Trump and some of the saber rattling he's done in the last few days has really put the market kind of in a tizzy.
It has. Well, we have what appears to be kind of an escalating trade war, even though a lot of these tariffs that are being bandied about, none of them, many of them have not been put in place yet. But the United States, the president will make a threat that I'm going to put tariffs on Chinese goods. The Chinese will respond, and then it just keeps ramping up. And we talked to some people in Oklahoma who could be specifically, impacted by these, and that was farmers and ranchers. Oklahoma has had a growing amount of soybeans planted in recent years, and the Chinese said that they were planning to put a 25% tax on soybean imports. About 2/3 of Oklahoma soybean crop goes out of state to be processed and then ends up overseas somewhere. So that would have a direct impact on these people, although that's not in place yet. Then you have wheat farmers, where we grow a lot of wheat in Oklahoma. It's our #1 crop, and they're not so concerned about China because China imports very little wheat. But we're also in the midst of NAFTA negotiations. Mexico buys a tremendous amount of wheat from Oklahoma specifically. Then you have ranchers. You have the Chinese said they would put a 25% tariff on pork. Much of our pork that's produced, and there's about 10,000 people in the state of Oklahoma that work in growing and producing pork. It gets imported or exported, I'm sorry. And so their prices went down immediately just when China said that they were planning to put that tariff on. And at the same time, they talked about beef too. Very little beef goes from here to China. But if pork prices go down, beef has to respond to that, because when you go to the grocery store, you're like, well, I can get pork for this much, and beef costs this much more, so they have to lower their prices to compete with pork. So we've got a lot of people in the state of Oklahoma that produce food, and we produce way more food than Americans need.
I think that's what people may not understand if you're
Right.
not in the agricultural industry, is that the American agricultural industry is built on an export model. We grow and raise far more food than we consume, with the idea being that we will export that food. And the impact, I mean, that's another thing we can talk about a little bit. I mean, of course, it gets spread out throughout the supply chain. Customers will pay a little bit more, farmers will get a little bit less. Everybody takes a sort of a piece of that action, I guess. But in the agricultural industry, where the margins can be small for big agricultural operations, to see something like that can maybe turn them from profit to a loss in a year.
It's true, and of course, the farmers and ranchers, they deal with markets all the time, so they're not in a panic about it. But it's interesting to see this political dynamic in that China, Canada, Mexico, these countries that we're negotiating trade agreements with, they know that farm country is Trump country for the most part, and this is a place where they can really hurt Trump politically. And farmers we talked to said, we trust the president, we think he's a great negotiator, let's wait and see what happens. But at the same time, the people on the other side of the negotiating table from the United States know that if we stick it to farmers and ranchers in this what appears to be an escalating trade war, that it's going to hurt the president politically. So,
well, and also on that list were Harley Davidson motorcycles and Kentucky bourbon.
Right, and Levi's jeans.
Home to
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, the head of the House,
McConnell, yeah.
McConnell and Paul Ryan, you know, both
Yeah.
deeply affected by those. Harley Davidson in Wisconsin, Kentucky bourbon from where Mitch McConnell hails from. So.
Yeah, so yeah, as they say, all politics is local. Well, the Chinese and the Canadians and the Mexicans who we're negotiating with know that too, and know that if they can put the hurt on these American politicians with their base, that's a.
Do these talks of tariffs rattle the energy industry at all? I mean, do we see any fallout into that area yet at all?
Not a great deal. I mean, we saw the steel tariffs, and the energy industry uses a lot of steel and infrastructure. You know, pipelines, rigs, all kinds of things, pipe. But it was not a huge impact, and we didn't see a great response to that, or great trepidation about rising prices for steel and aluminum. There's some concern, but it wasn't a major deal.
Okay. Market down again today. Wild swings all week.
Yes.
We'll see where that ends up. Somebody else is a little down these days.
Speaking of wild swings.
And being down, yeah. Let's talk about the Thunder. What's happened to the Thunder?
Well, I mean, so they have a pretty big win over the Pelicans that they really needed to come. They were coming off of a 3-game losing streak and pick up a big win over the Pelicans. Then the Warriors come to town a couple days later. That doesn't go all that well for a number of reasons. So what it does is it sets up the last chunk of the season. The Thunder has 3 games left, and there are a total of 2 games separating the number 4 seed and the number 8 seed in the Western Conference playoffs, in the standings. So even with only 3 games left, you could have a complete shift of seeding from everything from number 4 to number 8. And so the Thunder has a home game against conference leading Houston. Then they have a road game at Miami, and then another home game to finish out the season against Memphis. They need at least 2 wins out of those 3 games. You would think that Houston's going to be a little bit of a difficult task here, even if it's at home. But against Miami and against Memphis, they need those 2 wins pretty badly.
What happens if they lose all 3?
It depends on what happens with the rest of the league. If you look at the bottom half of the playoff race right now, other than Utah, every other team in that race over their last 10 games is at 500 or worse. So it's not like the Thunder is the only team that's scuffling its feet down the stretch here. Your top 2 or 3 teams in Houston, Golden State, and Portland are doing what you'd expect the top 3 teams in the league to do. They have been winning their games. From there down, it's been every day is a different look. The standings are different depending on who's won the night before, and it's going to continue that way, which is crazy with just 3 games left that there'll be that much shifting in the standings. Against Golden State, the Thunder had some issues. Russ puts up 44, has a tremendous game, but he got 0 help from his teammates. I was talking to Don before we started. Over the last 3 games, Paul George and Carmelo Anthony are right around 29% shooting. Paul George is 18 of 55. Carmelo,
that's not from 3, right?
No, that's total from the field. Carmelo is 19 of 53 from the field. So those guys are having some trouble with their shot late in the season. Paul George admitted to as much yesterday, saying that he just feels funny shooting the ball, and that's never been the case. So those guys have been spending some extra time after practice.
Knows that feeling.
Yeah.
My shot never felt right.
So those guys have been spending a lot of time after practice working with coaches and things like that. But it's going to be a really intriguing last week of the season. We find out if the Thunder makes the playoffs. We'll find out mid next week when and where they'll play. It'll either be next Saturday or next Sunday. And it's looking like one of those teams, whether it be Portland, Golden State, Utah, it could be any one of those 3 teams.
Well, we had a story today that should they fail to make the playoffs, there's sort of a bright spot there for them, right? They get a number 1 pick back.
They get a draft pick. It was a conditional pick that they had traded away, and so they would get that. Although I'm going to assume that anybody that you ask if they had the druthers, they would much rather be in the playoffs than have a draft pick. So
I'm going to ask you.
Oh yeah, I'd rather have playoff games.
Even if they go down in flames in the first round?
I think if they play anybody but Houston, it's going to be an interesting series. I frankly think Golden State would be a fascinating series, even though Golden State would clearly be favored, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder got beat. But I would love to watch an Oklahoma City Golden State series. It
was interesting. Golden State's in town, which brings a lot of people that we're familiar with back to Oklahoma City, including Anthony Slater, who covered the Thunder for us for a number of years, and now he's covering Golden State. We were having lunch with him, and we were talking about the the different playoff matchups that could happen, and we talked about Oklahoma City and Portland, to which everybody at the table said Oklahoma City wants no part of Portland. They have problems with Portland this year. And Anthony very succinctly pointed out, if Oklahoma City can't beat Portland, what are we doing? If they can't win at least a couple of games against Portland, what are we even doing?
How high could the draft pick be?
It would be a low lottery pick.
Yeah,
right?
it'd be in the teens. So I think 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range, I think. So
that could get you some help. That's
high enough. That's where we get players like Mitch McGary.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Yeah.
I
I wonder what Mitch is doing these days.
There's no telling.
Story for next week. Anyway, thanks for joining us. That's the kind of news we bring you every week, every day. We'll throw it in your driveway. Check us out online. Be sure to follow our teacher coverage from the Capitol. Like I said, Ben's there all day, every day, sometimes into the night. We won't let up on that story until that story comes to a conclusion. So check us out online, newsok.com. Thanks. We'll see you next week.